Hello friends, myself A.K. Grewal, teaching physics here. Today we discuss the addition of two vector quantities. It is very easy to add two scalar quantities. Suppose you have to add 3 and 5. You can easily add these two numbers. You got 8. 3 plus 5 should be equals to 8. Now suppose I have two vector quantities now. How we will add two vector quantities? Again, I have to say addition of two vector quantities is quite easy if they are either in the same direction or in opposite direction. Suppose I'm just taking an example. If I will write two forces, suppose they are acting in the same direction and you want to add these two forces, you can easily say it should be, the resultant should be 8 Newton. If they are in opposite direction, if I will write 3 Newton and this is 5 Newton, definitely this sign is negative. If you want to add these two, you can get minus 2 Newton. If I will taking positive x-axis is as positive direction, so this is, I'm just taking it as a negative direction. So the answer will be simply minus 2 Newton. But what will happen when two vectors of 3 Newtons and 5 Newtons are placed somewhere which is not in the direction? So here it is the importance how we add these two. The answer is nor 8 nor 2 here. It is certain its numerical value somewhere between 2 and 8. So how you will find the vector addition of these two values? So there are certain way to find the addition of these two vector quantities. First one, either you can make it by triangle method. In triangles, if you have two vectors here, you just place these two vectors in the form of triangles. You have to place this triangle. Actually, suppose I'm just taking two vectors, one here, another one is here. So what you will do, you made these vectors, you have to represent these two vectors by the two sides of a triangle. So you just make it like one A vectors and then start the second one with the head of the first one. This is B. Suppose these are two vectors. Now if you want to add this, so the resultant of these two vectors is given by a vector which is started from the tail of the first and end up to the head of the second. It means this one. This R vectors, which is already, we have already discussed about this vector quantity because it has certain magnitude and a direction. It is given by the addition of vector A and vector B. The magnitude of R may or may not be equals to the magnitude of sum of magnitude of A and magnitude of B. It depends on the angle. We will find out the relation between the resultant magnitude of the resultant and the magnitude of A and B letter. But the vector, in the vector notation, it is simply written as R vector equals to A vector plus B vectors. And how can I got it? By representing a vectors which start from the tail of the first and end up to the head of the second one. This is the first example, first case, how to find a vector, resultant vectors. Now the important one, parallelogram method. If you move to the parallelogram method, whatever be the two vectors are given to you, you have to make these two vectors, or you have to represent these two vectors with two adjacent side of the parallelogram. So it means you have to make these two vectors is represented by the two sides of the parallelogram, and complete the parallelogram now. If you complete the parallelogram, the resultant of these two vectors is given by the diagonal, co-initial diagonal. I have already told you, when you find out the resultant, you have to, if you want to find out the angle, you have to make it co-initial. So if you are making adjacent side, you have to make it co-initial, two co-initial adjacent side. The resultant will be the resultant of these two vectors A and B is the diagonal which is also co-initial from which the two vectors are originated. It means this diagonal will give you the resultant, and it will be represented by A plus V vectors. So now for our simplicity, I'm just making it like, suppose I'm just taking two another vectors A and vectors B, and make it a complete parallelogram again. Clearly this is the co-initial point, let it be O. The diagonal which is started from O is give you the direction of resultant. It means it will give you the resultant vectors of A and B. And what is the angle between the vectors A and B? Because from O is the co-initial point, so here the angle between two vectors will give you the angle between the vectors. Here I just want to discuss, if let this is the case, A vectors and B vectors, and this angle is 120 degree. So if I will ask what is the angle between the vector A and vector V, it is worth noting, I've already told you that the two vectors, if you want to find out the angle between the vectors, you have to make it co-initial. So you have to shift this P vector to the O point, started with the O point. If you shift a vector parallel to itself, the vector should not change. It means if you shift this vector here, the vector itself will not change. Now clearly if this angle is 120, it should be 60. So the angle between the vector A and B is not 120, it will be 60. So first of all, you have to be very careful to find the angle between the two vectors. Now I want to find out, let this point is C and this point is A, and this is vector A, and this point is B, this vector is B. Now I have to find out the magnitude of R. So for that I have to make it a Pythagoras triangle, right angle triangle. So I have to increase this OA length and draw a perpendicular from C to OA line. Let this line is intersect at E, and this angle is 90. Clearly if I will consider a right angle triangle OCE, I am using a Pythagoras theorem. I simply say OC square should be equals to OE square plus CE square. Now OC, what is OC actually? OC is a resultant vector. So the length of OC will give you the magnitude of R vector. So I can simply, in place of OC square, I can write R square. It is the square of the resultant vector. Now what is OE? OE represent with OA plus AE square, and CE, definitely it is a perpendicular. If this angle is theta, it should be theta, because these OB and AC are two parallel lines, so these are the same angle. Now if, and in parallelogram the opposite side has the same magnitude, it means the vector OB is same as the vector AC vectors, so it is, its magnitude is also B. So if I will take ACE triangle, definitely I can say AE should be equals to B cos theta and CE should be equals to B sin theta. I am here using a trigonometry, so I can say if I use trigonometry in this triangle, I get AE should be equals to B cos theta and C equals to B sin theta. If I will place this value here, R square should be equals to OA. In place of OA, I can write the magnitude of A. Simply, it's magnitude of A plus A. In place of A, I can write B cos theta whole square plus in place of C, I can write B sin theta whole square. If I will expand this, I got A square plus B square cos square theta plus 2B cos theta to AB cos theta and plus B square sin square theta. If I will take common from these 2 points, I get A square plus B square plus 2AB cos theta. So if I want to find out the resultant, magnitude of the resultant, so this is the relation. So the resultant of two vectors is given by under root of magnitude of A square plus magnitude of B square plus 2 times magnitude of A and magnitude of B into cos theta, where theta is the angle between the two vectors. Now, what should be the angle of the resultant with A vector? Suppose the angle of resultant with A vector is alpha. So now, if I want to find out the alpha angle, I can use the triangle OCE. If in triangle OCE, if I will apply tan alpha, so alpha, again I am using the trigonometry, it's perpendicular upon base, perpendicular CE and base OE. So I have to write CE divided by OE. Clearly, if you want to find out alpha of the resultant, it will be tan inverse. Now CE, I've already calculated C will be equals to B sin theta. And what is OE? If you want to find out OE, it is OA plus AE. What is OA? OA is the magnitude of A and ABE should be equals to B cos theta. So it should be A plus B cos theta. So in this way, you can find out the angle of the resultant with the vector A. So this is very helpful when you are going to solve the problems of addition of two vectors. As we discuss the addition of two vectors quantity are just using a parallelogram law, where two vectors are represented by the two adjacent sides of a parallelogram. The angle between the two vectors theta. The resultant is given by the diagonal of the parallelogram, which is originate from the same co-initial points, and alpha is the angle of the resultant with A vectors. So if you want to find out the resultant, you can use the formula magnitude of the resultant. You can use the formula magnitude of resultant will be given by under root A square plus B square plus 2AB cos theta, where A and B are used for the modulus of vector A and modulus of vector B. In the same pattern, angle of the vector resultant quantity, resultant vectors with the A vectors is given by tan inverse B sin theta divided by A plus B cos theta. Now, there are certain cases where angle will vary, or where certain things will vary. Now, I am just taking some cases. Case 1. What will happen when the angle between the two vectors will be 0? If the angle is 0, means they are in the same direction. You can use 0 in place of theta and cos 0 will be 1. So the resultant bit of two vectors comes to be under root A square plus B square plus 2AB, which is simply A plus B, and the resultant magnitude of the resultant will be maximum. Means if you applied two vectors in the same direction, the magnitude of the resultant will be maximum. Now, case 2, if theta is 90, the resultant, as we know, cos 90, the value of cos 90 is 0, so we have to put 0 here. So we get r is equals to under root a square plus b square. When two vectors you are applying are perpendicular to each other, remember this point is very important, because in most of the cases electric field, electric force, simply force, any forces, torque, moment, magnetic momentum, linear momentum, whenever you study a different physical quantity, there are so many vector quantities, and in examinations it is directly put forward in the form of, okay, find the resultant of two linear momentum. If two linear momentum is given, then find the sum of two linear momentum or sum of two forces which are inclined at different angles. If two fields, magnetic fields are there perpendicular to each other, what should be the resultant magnetic field? So it is worth noting, if you understand how you will add two vector quantities, it will simplify you so many problems in future. Now the case third, if theta is 180, if the two quantities are opposite to each other, cos 180 is -1. So if you applied -1 here, you got a square plus b square minus 2ab. In that case, r will be minimum, and the minimum value of r will be equals to a minus b. So if theta is 0, r will be maximum. If theta is 180, r will be minimum. It means if theta lies between 0 to 180, the value of r, the value of resultant force or the resultant, will lies between r max to r minimum. It means the value of r will be between a plus b and magnitude of a minus b. If two vectors quantities are given to you and answer is given to you, so first of all you can delete, because when you are appearing for the examination, it is a you can leave some, you are provided with 4 options, and you can leave some options by just observing the facts whether the resultant is lying between these facts. If suppose one of the answer is beyond a plus b, you can easily delete this question, this options, so you are remain with less number of options and you can easily guess it or you can solve it. Now what will happen now? Case 4. In case 4, if the two vectors are equal in magnitude, if the magnitude of two vectors are equal, suppose let it be x or it may be a, so in that case you have to apply it here, a square in place of b, you can write a also, it is 2a square cos theta, this is 2a square plus 2a square cos theta, or when you solve this, you find 2a cos theta by 2. The resultant of two equal vectors when inclined to theta is given by 2a cos theta by 2. I'm just taking an example. If two equal forces are applied at 90 degree, what should be the resultant force? So you can simply say the resultant force will be equals to 2f cos 90 by 2. But this formula will applicable only when the two forces are equal. So if you applied 90 by 2, it is 45. What is the value of cos 45? It is 1 by root 2. And when you solve this, you can get under root 2f. So simply, if two equal vectors are given, you can find out the resultant of these two vectors. As we discussed the addition of two vectors, in the same process, I can find out the subtraction of two vectors. Now I am going to get a subtraction. When two vectors are given, vector A and vector B, and now you want to find out the subtraction. Subtraction is like A minus B. You have to subtract B from A. So you have to take the vector negative of B. I have already told you, if you want to take a negative vectors, what you have to do? You have to take a vector reverse in direction and same in magnitude. So you have to place this vector which is equal in magnitude and reverse as direction as B. Now if you want to find out the resultant of these two, how can you find out the resultant? Definitely you can find the resultant by making a parallelogram, and the diagonal of the parallelogram will give you the subtraction of these two vectors. It means A minus B vectors. Now subtraction, if you want to find out the magnitude of the subtraction, definitely subtraction here, you can, in other words, you can say it is an addition of vector A and negative vector of B. And you know the formula of addition. It is A square plus magnitude of B. As you are taking a negative vectors, the magnitude will not change. Simply 2AB. Now what is the cos theta? As here you are adding two vectors, vector A and negative of B. What is the angle between the vector A and negative of vector B? Similarly, if the angle between the vector A and B is theta, the angle between the vector A and minus B is 180 minus theta. So you have to apply 180 minus theta here. This angle should be 180 minus theta. What is cos 180 minus theta? It will be minus cos theta. So this is the formula for subtraction. If you want to apply it, subtraction will be equals to under root A square plus B square minus 2AB cos theta. If two vectors are equal, the subtraction will be comes to be 2A sin theta by 2. So you can add two vectors, you can subtract two vectors. For I'm just taking an example. Suppose a particle is moving with velocity v, and in certain time its direction is changed by 60 degree. Its movement magnitude is not changing, but direction is changed by 60 degree. Because velocity is a vector quantity, now I have to find what is the change in velocity, delta v. Clearly, if I'm just asking for change in velocity v2 minus v1, as magnitude is changed, magnitude is not changed, direction is changed. So I'm just putting two vector quantities. So what is the magnitude of change? If the magnitude of change in velocity, as magnitude of the two quantities is not changing, so I can use this. Final A and B are same, so I can use this 2 into V into sine theta by 2, which is 60 by 2, that is 30. And what is the sine 30? The value of sine 30 is half. If you solve this, you can say the change in velocity will be similar to V, magnitude of V. So now you can practice yourself. This is very helpful process to finding the addition and subtraction. Thank you.